Round 2 of my top 8 match is soon to happen here on our channel. We have myself now on Ira against our opponent who is still on their Kano. This is going to be a very interesting one, and I believe I've packed enough AB for this, but we'll see whether or not this Volcor Wizard is going to have enough to get over our defenses and come in for the win. Alrighty, we have myself over on Ira against my opponent Teppa on Kano. This is the top 4 match, the second match in our best of 3, and we're going to see whether or not I have what it takes to get enough over this wizard. Now, normally Ira and most ninjas tend to play a lot of blues, so I'm very, very happy about it. And also, we are very much so graced with the fact that I have Tide Flippers, which is a great little foot piece that also has AB on it, so I'm not running a complete set of Null Rune, but having AB4 is certainly going to help me out a lot here, considering I do have a lot of blues. A lot of this deck is 0-cost blues that I can go ahead and use to attack with these Kodachis, which is, as you can see, what's happening here. And I hope to just kind of continue to poke down my opponent and hope to not draw an all-red hand when they come in for a kill turn. So we're going to go ahead and have our stuff blocked here, or obviously just making sure that we're not taking any kind of damage. The Kano gets to kind of finish their hand, and they get to really filter things out. And I think that's the more important part for them, is they want to filter out stuff from their hand. This is a open the center. This is only going to come in for 5. There is no combo on this one because I did not play head jab. So that's going to get blocked here for 3. And then they're going to take 2. Always love getting first blood turn 0. Always love that. And then I'm going to go ahead and just move to my end phase, arsenal that card, and then we're going to move on to the Kano's first main phase. So the reason I like to go first here is simply because I do want to make sure to kind of put on a bit of pressure. I have a 5 life lead, and also most of my stuff is blue, so I'm not really worried about trying to go super deep into the damage. I just want to kind of get a little bit off. So while they get to filter, which is kind of bad for me, what ends up working out is I don't really lose too many cards, and I have a ton of resources available to still be able to power through on these attacks. So we're going to see what the Kano has in store for us. It is their turn. They are running the Ragamuffins hat, the spell, what is that? Spellfire Cloak? Yeah, Spellfire Cloak. And then the Mage Master's Boots and the Iron Rock Gauntlet. So these Mage Master Boots are going to get popped here, and they're going to come in with a Aether Flare. Now, my goodness, now Aether Flare is the best way because, Aether Wildfire is not available to be played in Clash, so Aether Flare certainly does a decent amount of damage here. If it comes in and it hits, the next arcane stuff that you play for the rest of the turn also has that additional value to it. Lucky for me, though, I have a blue in my hand, and I'm going to pitch all 3 of it to AB that card. Any card that pumps up the other arcane damage effects, I want to use my arcane barrier to prevent, because that is way more important to me to block that out than having my opponent be able to deal 7 or 8 or 9 on their next arcane damage ability. So this Aether Quickening is now coming in for 4. There is no surge ability on it, so I will not have to worry about them getting go again on this card. But of course, I also still want to possibly block out some of this. I don't like taking arcane damage, so I'm going to figure out probably here I'm either going to take 4 or I'm going to just go ahead and block it out. I end up taking 4 here because I'm not worried it's not going to get go again. It doesn't get pumped up by anything. It's just a red Aether Quickening, so we're going to go ahead and just take a comfortable 4, and I'm going to be able to come in on my turn with whatever damage I have. Luckily, my turn is pretty simplistic. I pitch a blue 0-cost card, and I get to come in with Kodachis. So having all these blues is certainly helpful into the ninja matchup. Is it something that guarantees me safety? Absolutely not. I do run a decent amount of reds in here too. So if I pull a whole bunch of reds and they end up getting a really good turn, there really isn't too much I can do on that matter. I pretty much just die. So if I don't try to put on enough pressure right now, Kano will be able to set up their entire deck, be able to pitch stack accordingly to what they want in their final turns, and then end up coming in clutch and really just slamming a whole bunch of arcane damage into me. So I have 1 card in hand, 1 card in arsenal, no float, and I'm coming in with a Torrent of Tempo for 5. Now if this hits, it does get go again, but I still want to make sure that I'm keeping cards in hand. Even if I have just 1 card in hand is enough for me to go, okay, you know what? It could be a blue, right? The Kano could be thinking that it could be a blue. And I want that to be my thought process going into this. Even if it's a red, I want to be able to show that I have a card in arsenal, because if it is a red, that arsenaled card could be an Oasis Respite. If it's a blue in hand, I get to AB3 whatever he's coming in with on his turn, or on my turn, I should say, more specifically. And I think that's going to be very, very valuable to my own game plan moving forward with this match. So I still have a pretty decent lead. I'm at 16. They are at a whopping 10. So we're going to see whether or not this Torrent of Tempo hits, if they're going to block, or if they're going to go ahead and just try to blast me for a whole bunch of damage before the Torrent of Tempo even has a chance to hit. Obviously, with me not having Vest of the First Fist, I don't get any new resources or anything for this, so I can't really go much wider than I'd like, but the options are always there. So my opponent goes ahead and blocks 6 here. I get to go ahead and then just end my turn pretty easily. I'll go ahead and set everything back up there. I get what some would consider an IP penalty. I don't quite think so, but it is kind of like an IP penalty where I get to keep a card. I have to keep a card in hand instead of drawing 4 new cards. But draw up, move on over. They go ahead and they Crucible into a Aether Spindle. So this is now coming in for 5. It gets that +1 from the Crucible of Aetherweave. So 5 damage coming in. I have to figure out what I want to do. I can obviously AB4 at most and have him opt 1 card, or I can AB3 and have him opt 2 cards. I guess it depends on how much I want to keep. For some of it, because you don't want to get any of that damage off, and when Aether Spindle hits, they'll be able to opt however many cards they deal in arcane damage. So right now, they are currently coming in for 2 more. I have to either decide if I want to pitch 1 more for AB4 or if I want to continue. So I am AB4 here, so I'm going to block 4 of that damage. They're going to opt 1 card. 1 card could be enough to make it happen for Kano, but I definitely wanted to prevent as much of that there. Pretty much the cards you want to look for in Kano to block out are Aether Flares and Aether Spindles. Anything that allows them to opt a whole bunch of cards and then also be able to pump up the damage of their next arcane spells. Those are the ones that you want to avoid. So making sure to just kind of really put the pressure on your opponent and give them, the slowest opportunity to build their deck. This allows you to still be able to come in with a lot. So what I do here is I come in with a Soul Bead Strike for 4, leaving 1 card in my hand. I had thought about pitching it. If I recall correctly, that is a red card in my hand, and I'm just kind of, playing around, and we're chit-chatting, and I play a Soul Bead Strike for 4 instead of Kodachi's. And I feel like to my opponent, this probably would have been an opportunity for me to be like, well, they obviously don't have a blue in hand, because they would have played a blue and kept the Soul Bead Strike in hand, as opposed to just coming in with a Soul Bead Strike. But they're going to go ahead and block this all out for 4, and I'm not going to have any kind of crazy reaction or anything happen here. I'm going to get to keep a card in hand, keep them on the back foot, let them think that I have a whole bunch of blues and everything in hand, and we get to move on to our next turn. So we didn't really do much there. Another turn that our opponent gets to, set up. So if Kano's going to come in, they're going to go ahead and do the Kano thing. They're going to get an Aether Spindle blue off the top. So I believe that is only for 2 arcane damage, sorry. And they're going to then Kano again, and they get a Blazing Aether. Now, this is a little early to get a Blazing Aether, I gotta say. And I'm not sure whether or not that is something that they want to see, especially since their whole turn at this point is now going to be Spindle. I'm going to AB the entirety of the Spindle because I would. Therefore, Blazing Aether then would come in for a whopping 0 arcane damage. 0 arcane damage is just really, really good for me. So we're going to see what's happening here. It doesn't look like there's any additional pumps or anything. I'm going to go ahead and pitch a blue, leave 1 float, and then I'm going to AB both of that. The Blazing Aether is going to come in. I'm not going to say any AB for that because no damage is coming in. And then we're going to get to move on to my turn. So very, very excited about all that there. Right now, we're kind of in the driver's seat. We've seen 1 Blazing Aether already leave. We assume there's a Blazing Aether possibly in their arsenal. It's either that or an Aether Flare. But regardless, we're going to just come in with our Kodachis, kind of try and poke them down. They're going to take 1 from that first Kodachi, and then I'm going to go ahead and play a head jab for 4. So that's usually the spice here. If you can make one of your go again cards a breakpoint with Ira's ability, that's normally what you want to do. So coming in for that, we then take 4 damage on my opponent. They take 4, and I still have go again. So 2 float, still have go again, still have 1 card in arsenal. With that 1 card in arsenal, I'm wondering if I play it, because it would be a pretty good time to play it right about now, I'd imagine. So I'm going to go down to 1, attack with Kodachi. I want to keep my AB up. I want to be able to keep as many resources floating as possible, because again, while I have a pretty significant life lead, Kano can just blow me up at any moment. So I do need to really make sure that I am being very, very cautious with my resources, because if I end up overextending myself, that leaves Kano in the driver's seat to just go crazy. So in my arsenal was a blue Soulbead Strike. This is just simply coming in for 2 damage. So he hasn't blocked any of this other stuff that's been coming in, and that shows me that he wants to keep his hand. So blue Soulbead Strike comes in for 2. It gets go again because it does hit. They have 4 cards left in hand. I'm sitting with 1 card. As I want to do. Do I play this card from my hand? Do I arsenal it in case? Because at least if that's the case, if it's a blue, I can then do something here. So I'm moving to my end step. My opponent is then going to Kano. They're going to try and find some stuff off the top to kind of shoot me with some damage, you know, getting the card out of my hand instead of me being able to put it into my arsenal. That is a blue Prognosticate, which is only for 1, if I recall correctly. And that's kind of unfortunate because I have 1 float, so not really super worried into that. They're also then going to Crucible. Prognosticate is now going to come in for 2. So now I either have to take 1 or I have to pitch in order to prevent this damage. So it looks like I go ahead and take the 2 here. That's going to bring me down a bit. They get to go ahead and do some fun little shenanigans with Prognosticate. So now that Prognosticate is hit, my opponent is just going to opt 1. Opting 1 is pretty okay, I'd say, considering. Because again, opting 1 is way, way better for me than them opting 6 or 5 or however many, because it doesn't allow them to stack their deck as quickly. But even so, they got a little bit of damage off, bringing me closer to my final point. And then they still even have some stuff to come in with. They do have a Snapback, which is really cool. You can play this as an instant if you played a wizard action this turn, and they did with Prognosticate. So that means that this is coming in for another 3 damage. Now, of course, still have a pretty significant life lead, and most of my turn is probably going to be with 1 card in hand. I have to decide whether or not I want to just pass, or do I just take damage and hope for the best? Because it's not going to go well for me if I just end up taking a whole bunch. But I end up taking the 3 there. They've already pitched the Lessons in Lava in there too, as you can see. Lessons in Lava is really, really good. My opponent here then tries to crack Ragamuffin's Hat, so they are going to go ahead and Kano, get the card out of their hand to give them their resources, play Ragamuffin's Hat, and then they get to go ahead and bring 1 to the hand and then put 1 on top. And then they get to go ahead and use the Kano thing to banish that top card. It is an Emeritus Scolding. Very, very good. Emeritus Scalding is going to help a lot, because that's extra damage for them, especially since it looks like it's a red Emeritus Scalding. This is going to come in for a bunch of damage, and it's also going to pretty much shut off my turn. The thing is, though, is that I know this is the only thing they can do here. I'm just going to go ahead and just pitch my Flusterfist into it. I'll AB 2 and go all the way down to 4 or 6. Sorry, I take 4. So that is going to be pretty powerful. I'm still not. I took a lot of damage there. That was a really powerful turn from Kano. And now I just have to hope that my Kano's turn is not have very strong Kanos. If they don't get to, if the cards they banish from the top are not very great or not high in their power, I have a chance to win. But they're at 2 life, so I have a pretty good opportunity here to be in Kodachi lock. This is going to come in for 1, and they're going to go ahead and take the 1. And now it comes down to the final killing blow. I'm going to use my last 1 and come in with a Kodachi. Now, Kodachi, obviously, this is death for them. So this is where Kanos really excel in being able to just blow up everything. They pitch an Aether Flare and get that Blazing Aether. Now, that's pretty good, but they have to get other really good things on there as well. So they get an Aether Quickening. So Aether Quickening doesn't cost a whole lot to play. And so you're able to usually just swing these things out. They pitch their second Lessons in Lava to then have this Aether Quickening come in. If I can block this out, you know, collectively pretty well with AB4, that means that that Blazing Aether will do no damage. I pitch another blue from my hand to block out all of 4 of it, now leaving the Blazing Aether at doing no arcane damage at all, and they have to play another arcane card at instant speed before they play Blazing Aether in order for them to actually do anything with that card. If they get anything that deals a ton of damage, blazing like a Aether Spindle or something, that's going to be able to do pretty good stuff. They pay the 1 though, and they can now play the Snapback from their hand and deal 3 more. Now, if I have blues, I use them, and therefore I pitch a 3rd blue, and then have Blazing Aether come in for 0. And that is pretty much the end here. My opponent then, it comes in for nothing. They don't have any cards in their hand to block the Kodachis, and I go in for the game. And I go ahead and show here that my hand actually here was 4 blue cards. I was able to comfortably come in with 4 blues on what would have been death for me. This is another one of those situations where you can make your deck to the best of its ability, but if you end up not drawing the correct color of cards on the death turn, of course, then you pretty much fail it out. If I only got 2 blues instead of 4 blues, that would have been a lot less damage, or a lot more coming at me, because it was 4 from the Quickening, then it was 3 from the Snapback, and then it would have been whatever was dealt to me on the Aether, on the Blazing Aether. And if I had 2 reds and 2 blues, I'd have pitched a blue for my Kodachis. I'd have 1 float. I'd have pitched that other blue to get rid of the Aether Quickening. They would have then come in with a Snapback. I could have only pitched 2 reds if I had reds, and it would have dealt 1 damage, and then the Blazing Aether would have come in for 1. Still would have won there in that specific scenario, but it would have cost me my whole hand, and if they decided to block or do anything else, it probably would have been a different turn. But I think it ended up being pretty well. It ended up working out in my favor. Running a lot of blue heavy decks, especially with, Part the Mistveil coming out pretty soon, you're going to see a lot more blues in these decks. So I'm very, very excited to see what my next match continues to be, because now that I have officially beaten Teppa for the 2nd time in our best of 3, that means that I'm now moving on to the finals of our Clash Bash League. So if you guys want to see what the final games look like, make sure to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already, and if you wanted to support the channel in a super, super humble way, feel free to go ahead and become a channel member. Channel members do get special videos specifically for them, and you do also get access to loyalty badges and emotes for when I go live, if I can go live every Thursday. So I hope you guys want to check that out. Obviously, it is much appreciated to do that, but it is not necessary. Just subscribing to the channel is more than enough. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all. I love you all. And continue having fun in the flesh and blood. And I'll see you all in our next game, the finals of the Clash Bash Season 1